Good morning, Long Island. Welcome to Café con José, the bridge between the community and the news. I'm so happy because today we have here having coffee with us, Mr. Charles Lavine, the Assemblyman that is here because he's going to tell us a lot about his campaign to be the new Nassau County Executive. Mr. Lavine.
Jose, thank you very much. And Chuck is fine.
Chuck
is fine. Carlos,
we speak a little bit Spanish, right?
Solamente un poco. Un poquitito.
Okay, so we're going to make this interview in English, but welcome to Café con José. Thank you for coming here.
The pleasure is mine. Me gusta mucho.
Thank you for coming. And so I want to start talking about your career. How's your experience? How do you end up in this whole politics world?
Well, I look back and I suppose I have always been in some sort of a political atmosphere. I grew up in an immigrant home and I lived with my grandmother, who was from Lithuania, and she had grown up as a young Jewish woman with a tremendous amount of prejudice. One of her brothers was killed because he was skating someplace. That Jews were not allowed to skate. And so I grew up in a home in which my grandmother was very fearful, and she would talk a lot about the Tsar. And as a little child, I thought we had a Tsar here. But that's how frightful her experiences were. And in part, because she could not speak English, I was almost a bit of like the interpreter for her to try to educate her about America and what things were like here, because many of her attitudes were so shaped by the horrible experiences she had that she was very paranoid about government in general. And as a matter of fact, now I'm going to speak in Spanish a little bit.
Okay.
Pero cuando era niño, mi abuela me mandaba al servicio postal porque tenía temor del gobierno. Yo sé lo que es experimentar temor y yo sé lo que nuestras comunidades hacen para perseverar en América. Quiero que sepas que si votas por mí, yo pelearé por ti. Somos una familia. Now I'm going to go back to English. My grandmother would not allow the postman to come to our house, the mail carrier, because she didn't want the government to know where she was. So from the time I was old enough to walk by myself, I was sent to the post office to get the mail. So I have a little bit of appreciation for the fears that people have about an oppressive government. And of course, my job as a young American kid was to try to make sure that my grandmother understood that she could rest at ease and she did not have to worry. Now, Jose, I had another grandmother who lived until she was 106 years old. She only died about 10 years ago. She was not from northern Russia. She was from the Ukraine. But as a little girl, she had hid in a hay wagon during a pogrom. So the government sent the Cossacks in to her village to kill people. As a little girl, she saw people killed. So this is part of the immigrant experience that is so valuable to us and makes us so passionate about making sure that America remains the land that is shaped by the immigrant experience. And of course, today, our great challenge is to make decisions about how do we as Americans, as part of the American dream, best protect the refugees who we see. We see more refugees today than we have since the end of World War II.
Right, and what you're seeing is completely, we can talk about it here in Nassau County where we have, a vast population of people who are coming, fleeing from violence in Central America, and a lot of people are watching the show. How do you relate with them? How do you work with these immigrant communities?
I think for me it's a natural experience. I also have the good fortune to be married to someone for 46 years, and she was a teacher, a special education teacher in the South Bronx and in Glen Cove. And in Glen Cove we have a large Latino population. And when you mention some of the horrors that people face and the reason that refugees become refugees, my wife taught a youngster who was from Peru. And when this child, now this is going back quite a few years ago, when this child was very, very young, guerrillas had taken over their village. And the guerrillas threatened this child's parents and actually had sophisticated automatic weapons pressed on the heads, against the heads of the parents. The child would not speak. And the child's condition was what was called a selective mute. And my wife, Ronnie, worked with this child, and sure enough, by the end of the year, this child was speaking again. That's a tribute to America.
Yeah, that's what I think that's what we all expect from America. But in reality, everything that's happening, these days, how would you think your campaign could be different than the national status of what's happening?
Well, I think that Nassau County is unique. Nassau County is a place in which we have people from every background. It is a very diverse community today. Yeah. And the future of America is in our diversity. So I understand the immigrant experience, and I have fought for it all my life. And I think that it's going to be a good thing to have a county executive who has that sensitivity, the sensitivity to making sure that we stand for the proposition, the American proposition, that we are all in this together. We're all interrelated, we are all intertwined, and we have to watch out for each other. And that's what America is all about. I think Nassau County needs a strong voice to advance that proposition and to stand for that wonderful American spirit.
So you're saying you think the diversity is it's the main thing in our county, but it's a big challenge too, because of the same racism and discrimination that this county has been has been part of it. Why do you want to be the Nassau County Executive?
Because I think I can make a difference. And in terms of hate and anger and racism, we have to recognize these are not simply these are not part and parcel of what makes America a great country. Every nation has its people who hate. Every nation has its people who want to divide rather than bring us together. I think our challenge, especially in the age of the Trump presidency, is to make sure we bring all our communities together. And that's what America has to stand for, and that's what Nassau County has to stand for. And it shouldn't matter where someone's parent or grandparent came from. It shouldn't matter in the least whether someone speaks a foreign language or with any particular accent. We are all in this together, and we all need to protect each other. We Americans have enemies overseas who are very wily, and they're very capable of hurting us, and they have hurt us in the past. Just think back to September 11th. But if we don't stay strong, and we don't stand for the American dream, and the American dream is we are in this together, and we protect refugees. That's part and parcel of the American dream.
Okay. Chuck, and what about those 3 priorities? Can you tell us 3 priorities of your campaign if you become the new Nassau County Executive?
Certainly. One priority is honesty and integrity. I am the chairman of the Ethics Committee in the State Assembly, and our Ethics Committee deals solely with cases of sexual harassment and retaliation. I'm also the co-chair of the New York State Legislative Ethics Commission. So the Legislative Ethics Commission, under my leadership, has imposed very large fines, up to $330,000, on members of the Assembly who have violated our ethical rules. We need a government that's honest. We need a government that's ethical. We don't have that now. This is a terrible, terrible thing. It's a terrible mark on our community, our Nassau community, that our county executive and his wife are under federal indictment. It's a terrible mark on our community that the supervisor, the former supervisor of the town of Oyster Bay, is also under indictment. Now, they're not under indictment for inconsequential or minor things. They are charged with federal corruption. This is a big deal. And a large measure of this corruption stems from the way Nassau County contracts have been awarded to people. Now, those contracts they don't go to the people who deserve the contracts. They don't go to the people who are qualified to handle the work. They go to people who are the political allies of the Republican Party. Now, this should not be a Republican or a Democratic issue. because corruption knows no bounds. But we have seen, and we see almost every week in Nassau County, that it is one Republican after another Republican in public office who is charged with violating the law, and if not violating the law, certainly violating the spirit of the law. This has to end. Every time a contract goes to someone who is a political favorite, that means that somebody who is in our community, who really needs to do that work and is qualified to do that work, is discriminated against. We cannot stand for discrimination. Now we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of county work that should be going to people who are qualified to handle it. That means that those dollars end up, if they're going to people who are qualified, they go into our communities that are most in need. So we have to make sure that Nassau County is not simply the home of the wealthiest suburban communities in the nation, but we have to make sure that other communities are able to reap the benefits of the county work that's done. That means places like Uniondale, Roosevelt, Hempstead, Baldwin, Freeport, Glen Cove, and parts of Westbury as well. We have to make sure everyone is part of our community.
Right.
And I'm prepared to do that.
But how are you gonna get these votes from the places that are more Republicans on the line? How are you gonna get everyone together? They're so centered, we're really close to the city, but we're really far from those liberal thoughts in different parts of Long Island. Like Republicans and Democrats in different places. How are you gonna do that?
José, I have faith in the American people. And which isn't to say the American people will always do the right thing because we have President Trump in Washington. But by and large, the American people will do the right thing. And the people of Nassau County will do the right thing. I think that the people of Nassau County have a choice of someone who is a party regular in the Republican Party, who's going to continue with the way business has been done, business is as usual over all these years, or they have the choice to vote for someone who is strong and experienced and is a proven leader in government. I think they're going to go with the better person, and I'm the better person.
Okay, so we're going to make a break, and when we came back, Chuck is going to tell us why he is the best option.
Better than the
best. And he's going to play the social media soup with the questions that you already sent. So we'll be right back. We're here in Café con José with the Assemblyman Charles Lavine, Carlos.
Por supuesto, Carlos.
Por supuesto. Next time he's going to try to speak more Spanish. Probably you're going to come here with more Spanish.
That will be una lástima, por cierto.
Well, we're going to try to do that. But today, we're going to play the social media soup. These questions, he doesn't know the questions. We know the questions, and you guys know the questions because you already sent us these questions. Some of them are really hard, I don't know, for me, but not for you. I'm sure.
Yeah, easy for you to say.
So, are you ready?
How would I say that in Spanish? Es fácil por ustedes.
Para ti.
Para ti.
Yeah.
Sí, es fácil para ti.
Because I'm only going to ask the questions. So, Chuck, first question we have, this is a big question. It says, and this is literally what people sent. Okay. So, George Moragas has only been a Democrat for about a year. He ran for U.S. Senate twice as a Republican and took some really conservative positions and things like gay rights. Do you think he's a real Democrat, or did he just switch parties for political expediency? Wow.
Now that
Thank you.
is una pregunta buena. I think Mr. Maragos has to answer for himself.
He's coming next week, but I guess people want to hear your opinion about
He has been a Democrat for about 6 months. And on the day he announced that he was going to change parties and become a Democrat, he also announced that he was running for county executive. So he is going to have to answer for himself what's in his heart. But no matter what is in his heart, it's going to be up to the people of Nassau County And in a Democratic primary, it's going to be up to Democrats to make a decision as to whether he truly believes in the Democratic ideals or as to whether he believes the way he believed in 2013 when he accused Obama of being a socialist and when he was against gay marriage or marriage equality. He ran as a hard-right Republican because he wanted to run as the Republican candidate for the United States Senate against Kirsten Gillibrand. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting Kirsten Gillibrand, but she is someone I consider a friend, and I think that she is one of the very best people in government. So it will be up to the public to make that decision, but it's truly up to Mr. Maragos to persuade people as to whether he is simply an opportunist or as to whether he is a real Democrat. And if he's become a real Democrat, that's quite a transformation.
Okay, so that's his answer. We're going to know Mr. Maragos' answer next week when he's here. Chuck, what is your plan to protect undocumented people in Nassau County?
So I have stood up and I have fought against very poor immigration policies. I've stood up and I've demanded that we have an honest and a fair immigration process, which we do not have in the United States. We simply do not. So I have also worked with our community, our Hispanic and Latino community in the North Shore of Long Island to try to help and protect people, to try to help organize the community, because in order for Americans to gain rights, and we can gain rights, we have to fight for them. All America can do, the best America can do, is provide us with an environment in which we get to fight for our rights. So I am happy to work with Latino people. I'm happy to work with anyone to stand up for their rights. So I have done that. And I also employ in my office Nelson Melgar, who's here thanks to DACA. If not for DACA, Nelson would not be able to be in the United States. And we worry about him. He's a great young man and a valuable employee, and in so many ways he's every bit as American as mine. In fact, in almost every way, except for one. He's as American as my own kids. And we cannot afford to waste our assets. And that's what I believe. And I'll stand for that, and I will fight for that.
And there's a lot of people in that position.
Yes, yes. And that brings me back to my grandmothers, who were here. They were here because they were refugees. And my grandmother, who died only 10 years ago, and she and I were very close, at 106, her greatest fear the last years of her life, and she was not always thinking completely clearly, but her greatest fear was she was going to lose her citizenship.
Wow.
That's what it means to be an American.
Wow. So, okay, another question. What are you going to do to implement language access at Nassau County agency since Mangano has failed to keep his promise to do so?
So, you and I were speaking before the show. I was very fortunate to grow up in a home in which English was not the only language. And as a matter of fact, I've mentioned to you, the grandmother with whom I grew up could speak hardly any English whatsoever. We are a nation of people who speak many, many different languages. We are a county of people from all over the world. There will, and this is my guarantee, there will be people in every department, every agency, who are ready, willing, and able to communicate with the people who need those services. I have fought for this continually in the New York State Assembly. We have state rules and regulations that require that important information, notices, have to be posted in hospitals and public places in many different languages. This is our challenge. Our challenge is to make sure everyone here feels welcome, they feel at home, they feel safe, secure, because they have as much stake in our nation as does anybody and everybody else. Okay. It makes us strong. It makes us very strong. It makes us the strongest nation.
Stronger together.
The fact that we are all separate threads bound together.
Okay, so the Nassau County Democratic Party has endorsed your opponent in the primary Loriker. Tell us about their endorsement process, and why do you think Chairman Jay Jacobs and team want someone else as a nominee?
Chairman Jacobs, who has made this endorsement, not the Democratic Party itself. It's Chairman Jacobs who's made this endorsement. And I would have to leave it up to Chairman Jacobs to describe why he has made that particular choice. Laura Curran is a fine person. She's a friend. I've known her for many, many years. I knew her long before she was a member of the Nassau County Legislature. But she's been on the Nassau County Legislature for 3 years. I am not entirely sure that 3 years on the Nassau County Legislature compares with the 13 years I've served in one of the great complex legislatures in the United States. That's the New York State Assembly. And prior to that, I was on the Glen Cove City Council for 1.5 years. And before that, I was on the Glen Cove Planning Board for many years. And before that, I was the lawyer for the Community Development Agency in Glen Cove, and also for the Industrial Development Agency in Glen Cove. I think that my experience in government far outweighs her experience in government. And I think that the people of Nassau County ought to know that whoever is in the position of being Nassau County Executive has that wealth of experience, that breadth of experience in government, because it's going to be necessary. We face very, very difficult choices in this county. And without someone with strength, with leadership, and with knowledge as county executive, we're going to repeat the mistakes we have made over the past years, and we cannot afford to do that.
Okay, so we have the final question is, how's your fundraising going? Will you have enough money to compete?
I will have enough money to compete, Jose, and I am very, very lucky because I have been able to attract some of the very best people in the United States to work on my campaign. And I did very well. I did nearly as well as Laura. In fact, we did just about the same with respect to our fundraising capabilities for the first filing. And I'm fully confident that I'm going to have enough money to wage this battle and win this battle. And I've been very gratified and very happy that so many people have been willing to offer support.
All right, Chuck. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Tell this camera your website and where people can find some information.
Well, we can go to chucklavine.com, and también quiero decir en español que es muy importante a saber que hay alguna gente en gobierno que se pueden hablar al menos un poco en la lengua y quienes tienen alguna apreciación por la cultura, y quiero decir que este país es tanto mío como tuyo. En este momento necesitamos buen liderazgo. Y si me eliges para ser el ejecutivo del condado de Nassau, protegeré tus derechos civiles. And I want to say, muy muchas gracias for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jose.
And so everyone, please stay tuned on noticialive.com. Visit Chuck Lavine's website and follow him on social media. And you're doing a lot of stuff. So people have to follow you on social media. So.
That's thanks to a very good team of people working with.
All right, so that's what we have to do. Noticialive.com. You stay tuned with all the local news here in Long Island.